Good people are idiots. That's the idea at the heart of Dostoevsky's novel, The Idiot. It's not just a throwaway line. It reflects something deeper: the pain, the confusion, and the moral chaos Dostoevsky himself wrestled with in his life. He poured all of that into this book: his experiences, his suffering, and his reflections on what it means to be truly good in a flawed world. At its core, The Idiot is a response to the pain that comes with being too aware, too conscious of human suffering, and too desperate to stay good in a world that doesn't reward it. But the novel isn't just about goodness. Dostoevsky cracks open the door to show us something raw and ugly, a world driven by greed, selfishness, and the misuse of free will. He's not just pointing fingers at society. He's asking us the deeper question: why? Why do we keep making these choices? What's driving all this madness? To really understand what Dostoevsky is saying, we have to look at the characters and the chaos they bring. The story kicks off on a train. Prince Myshkin, our main character, is returning to Russia after spending years in a Swiss sanatorium for his epilepsy, something Dostoevsky himself had. On the journey, Myshkin meets two men who represent everything he's not. There's Parfyon Rogozhin, who just inherited a ton of money and is completely obsessed with a woman named Nastasya Filippovna. Then there's Lebedev, manipulative, sneaky, and totally self-serving. Once insane. Petersburg, Myshkin visits a distant relative, General Yapanshin. That's where he meets Aglaya, the youngest daughter. She's smart, beautiful, and instantly intrigued by Myshkin's odd mix of innocence and depth. But then we meet Nastasya. Her life is a mess. She was groomed by a rich predator, Totsky, who now wants to be rid of her by marrying her off to Ganya, a man who only cares about climbing the social ladder. Nastasya's not interested in that game. At a party thrown by Rogozhin, things explode. Rogozhin offers 100,000 rubles for Nastasya, essentially saying, "I'll buy your love." In a bold move, Nastasya grabs the cash and throws it at Ganya, calling him out for being a sellout. Myshkin, true to who he is, doesn't judge her. Instead, he tells her he loves her and wants to marry her. No strings attached, just love. But Nastasya can't handle that kind of purity. Instead of accepting it, she runs off with Rogozhin. This is where Myshkin's goodness starts to undo him. His relatives learn about his inheritance and start circling like vultures, but instead of pushing them away, he tries to help them. Aglaya keeps reappearing in his life. She likes him, but his unwavering goodness also frustrates her. She can't understand why he keeps helping people who treat him like dirt. The world is cruel, yet Myshkin keeps trying to fix it. She's drawn to him, but he's still in love with Nastasya. Eventually, there's a dramatic moment where Myshkin, Aglaya, and Nastasya all end up in the same room. Aglaya sees him side with Nastasya and storms out. Whatever potential there was between her and Myshkin ends there. Myshkin and Nastasya decide to get married, but on the wedding day she panics. She feels like she doesn't deserve his love and runs away with Rogozhin again. This time, things take a dark turn. Driven by jealousy, Rogozhin kills her. When Myshkin finds him sitting beside Nastasya's body, broken and lost, he doesn't react with anger or judgment. He sits beside him, comforts him, and even wipes his tears. This is the same man who once tried to kill Myshkin, but Myshkin forgives him again. By the end of the novel, Myshkin is completely broken. The world has chewed him up and spit him out. He ends up back in the sanatorium, and everyone else is left to pick up the pieces. Dostoevsky is basically asking, what happens when you drop someone truly good into a society that's anything but? It's raw, it's brutal, and it sticks with you. The Idiot forces us to confront a hard question. Are morally good people fools? There's a lot you can take away from this novel, and everyone's going to walk away with their own interpretation. But for me, the biggest thing that hit was this: being too good can actually destroy you. Dostoevsky created Prince Myshkin as this Christ-like figure, what some call a holy fool. He's full of kindness and zero malice, but that kind of purity doesn't get you far in the real world. Myshkin spends the entire story getting walked over. His relatives try to take his inheritance, Rogozhin literally tries to kill him, and Myshkin forgives them all. Every single time. And while that might sound noble, it's also why Aglaya, one of his love interests, calls him an idiot. She wanted a man with a backbone, someone who wouldn't just let people step all over him. Myshkin wasn't that guy. Her family didn't like him either. They didn't see strength in his compassion. They saw weakness. To them, he wasn't someone you could rely on, just someone who kept turning the other cheek. At one point, Myshkin even offers to marry Nastasya not because he's in love, but because he wants to save her from herself. That's kindness on a whole different level, but it's also exactly why society can't handle him. He's too pure, too good, and that makes people uncomfortable. Some even start getting suspicious, like, no one can be that nice unless they're hiding something. And honestly, I get it. That kind of goodness doesn't really work in the real world. You can't sit next to the guy who murdered the woman you love, wipe his tears, and expect life not to break you. Especially today, when being clever isn't just a skill, it's how you survive. That doesn't mean you need to be ruthless or manipulative, but you do need to be smart about who you trust and where you draw your boundaries. It's the classic nice guys finish last situation, and while I'm all for kindness, empathy, and being a decent human being, there has to be a limit. Being kind doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. Sometimes you need to be harsh, because if you're not, people will use you. That's just human nature. It actually reminds me of Machiavelli's and Nietzsche's critiques of Socratic philosophy. Both of them pushed back against the idea of reason above all. They argued that we should trust our instincts more, like the pre-Socratic Athenians did. I don't fully buy into Nietzsche's worldview. He takes it pretty far. But his point still stands. There needs to be balance. Rationality, yes. Kindness, definitely. But also instincts, boundaries, and when needed, toughness. Because life throws a lot at you, and Dostoevsky captures that mess on the beauty and the tragedy of it so well. In The Idiot, life is messy, complicated, and full of suffering, but somehow it's still beautiful in its chaos. The ups and downs, the emotional whiplash, the unpredictability of human behavior. It's all painful, sure, but it's also what gives life its depth. And that brings us to one of the most powerful ideas in the story: living in constant uncertainty. One of the most fascinating things about The Idiot is how every single character is a walking contradiction. Nobody knows what they actually want. They can't stick to a decision, and their emotional flip-flopping is what fuels all the drama. Take Myshkin, for example, our so-called hero. He's so good-hearted that it becomes a problem. He's stuck in this emotional tug-of-war between Nastasya and Aglaya. It's not that he's leading them on, he just genuinely feels bad for everyone. And while that's noble in theory, in practice, it's a disaster. Then there's Nastasya. Absolute chaos in human form. One minute she's pushing Myshkin away because she believes she's too broken to deserve love. The next, she's running off with Rogozhin, who, let's be honest, is the walking embodiment of a red flag. She'll throw money into a fire just to make a statement, call everyone out, and then do something completely unpredictable the next second. And Aglaya? She's that one person who probably likes you but expresses it by constantly roasting you. She mocks Myshkin for being too pure, but you can tell she's drawn to him except when she's not. Or maybe she is. Honestly, every conversation with her is like playing emotional roulette. And then there's Rogozhin. His entire personality is built around his obsession with Nastasya. He claims it's love, but really he's one bad day away from totally losing it. Which, spoiler, he does. He ends up killing her because he can't stand the idea of anyone else having her. But here's the thing. Dostoevsky doesn't make these characters inconsistent just for the drama. Their erratic emotional messiness is the point. They're mirrors of real people, unpredictable, conflicted, selfish, vulnerable. They're all torn between what they want, what society expects of them, and their own inner chaos. It's frustrating, yeah, but it's also what makes the story feel so real. You don't get neat character arcs tied up with life lessons. What you get is human nature in all its wild, self-destructive glory, the flip-flopping, the indecisiveness. It's Dostoevsky basically throwing his hands up and saying, "This is life. Good luck figuring it out." Which leads us into the next major theme: realistic life and free will. What I love most about The Idiot is how brutally honest it is about life. Dostoevsky doesn't sugarcoat anything. Life hurts. No one escapes suffering, not even the rich. Rogozhin has more money than he knows what to do with, but is he happy? Not even close. He's drowning in obsession, jealousy, and inner chaos. Money's supposed to fix things, right? And yet Dostoevsky reminds us again and again that it can't buy peace of mind. Look at Nastasya. Her whole life is basically a slow-motion train wreck, and you can't look away. She hates herself so much that she keeps throwing herself at destruction over and over again. And then there's the greed. Almost every character in this story is chasing something: money, status, control, like those things are going to save them. Meanwhile, Myshkin, the one genuinely good person, walks into the middle of all this thinking he can fix it. But society eats him alive. People see his kindness as weakness. They use him, laugh at him, manipulate him, until there's nothing left. And honestly, it's heartbreaking, but it's also incredibly real. It's so real that the world doesn't even know what to do with someone like Myshkin, because he's not playing the same game everyone else is. He's not chasing wealth, power, or control. He's not trying to win, he's just trying to be good. And the world chews him up for it. Sure, maybe he deserves some of it. Maybe he was too naive, too idealistic. But that doesn't make it any less tragic. Then there's Ippolit, just a kid, dying of tuberculosis, already carrying the full weight of life on his shoulders. His illness, his lack of purpose, the crushing sense of futility, it all pushes him to the edge. And when he tries to end his life in front of everyone, it's one of the most gut-wrenching moments in the book. Dostoevsky doesn't flinch. He doesn't clean it up. He shows just how deep despair can run, how heavy it can feel when you can't find a reason to keep going. And what really hits me is how everyone's so-called free will feels like an illusion. Yeah, we all think we're making our own choices, but are we? Or are we just doing what society expects? Chasing money, status, survival? Dostoevsky seems to be saying, you think you're choosing? Nah, you're just following the script. People like Rogozhin and Nastasya, they're not free. They're trapped in cycles of obsession, trauma, and emotional chaos. Others are slaves to greed or reputation. Even Myshkin, who tries to rise above it all, gets pulled down in the end. His kindness isn't enough to save anyone, not even himself, and that's what makes the idiot so beautiful and so devastating. Dostoevsky doesn't offer a fairy tale. There's no clean resolution, no happily ever after. Just people, deeply flawed, heartbreakingly human, stumbling through a world that keeps pulling them in all the wrong directions. And honestly, that's about as real as it gets.